All right, this is Dr. Aaron Warner, and welcome to Independent Insights, where we share quick conversations on topics relevant to running efficient and profitable independent private practices, while also providing the best care for our patients. I want to thank Vision Source for sponsoring and supporting these podcasts. It's their mission to help independent optometrists to achieve their highest potential. Today I had a really fun conversation with Kristin Warren. She led a book club recently on, the book was The Question Behind the Question. And so we reviewed the key points in the book, some of the takeaways, some of the things they learned. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Give us some feedback. Let us know what questions you have. Share the conversation. Give us a 5-star review. Subscribe. And look for us next time. Thank you. All right, Kristin, thanks for joining us. And based upon your accent, you sound like you're from down south. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Yes, so from Middle Tennessee, at Bedford Vision for Dr. Kathy Shanglin, and born and raised here. Been here my whole life.
Oh, very cool. And how long have you been at the practice you're at now?
So this time, because I left and came back, almost 4 years.
Okay. Well, what do you do at the practice?
Now I am the practice manager.
Nice. So, and you wear a couple of hats because you also help to lead the staff arm of Vision Source. They call it the Vision Source Representative Program, or the VSR program. And,
yes.
And how big is your group of staff that you engage with down there?
So for my staff in the office, we have 6 full-time, 2 part-time, 3 doctors.
Okay. And what about the VSR group? How many offices
I think
are involved in that?
I think there's anywhere from like 12 to 20 offices.
Okay. So, very cool. And I asked that because as a doctor, I'm really good at taking credit for all the awesome things that happen out of the office, but I know full well who makes those awesome things happen, and that's our teams. And love that you not only lead the team that you have, but they help coordinate and help support and build that support network for all the Vision Source teams in your area. So that's pretty cool. So, and part of that, you decided to hold the book club, which is why I wanted to invite you on. And the book club was national, right? You opened it up to people all over.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So walk us through what book did you guys look at? How did you set that up? And then let's get into some of the learnings and discussions that you got from the book club.
So the book club was an inspiration based on a book club that Dr. Mike Rothschild did. It was more like ODs, and I was the only office manager that participated, but this was actually one of the books that we did. It was The Question Behind the Question, and it stuck. So then I reached out to Tammy and said, hey, I love being VSR, but sometimes we just need some networking for us because we run out of ideas or we need to brainstorm. So she's like, let's do it. She talked it up for us. And then we had several that just hopped in and participated. We Zoomed and cool. We did it once a month for 4 weeks. So very cool. And so you read the so once a month for 4 sessions, and and the book was The Question Behind the Question, or QBQ, and I love that book. We'll put a link to the book in the show notes. John Miller is the author. But what about this book resonated with you and said, hey, let's all talk about it? So most offices can relate in that after 2020, something happened with staffing. It was a common thing, whether it be our small VSR group that we had or across the nation, that staffing was just the issue. And we try to, as office managers, as leaders, we try to fix everyone else, but ultimately we have to take a step back and look at what we're doing and what can we do to improve ourselves. Because you can't improve the practice trying to change everyone else. You got to start, at the top with the doctors and with the staff. Yep.
It reminds me of the Michael Jackson song about the man in the mirror. Right?
Yes.
Starting with yourself first. So cool. So walk us through, what are some of the points that the book made? And I agree. I love the book. Read it multiple times. Actually listened to it. I prefer to listen in the car. But what are some of the points that the book made? And then how did you and the book club take those and apply them into private practice?
So some of the points that it made was the first one, most important, is personal development, just taking the time to do something. We come into work, say 9 to 5, but it has to be more than that, because when we're here, we're putting out fires. So you have to be engaged and take that time for personal development. Now, the very first opening story was about the restaurant and the server. You know, a guy come in, he wanted a Coke. They didn't have Coke. He had Pepsi. Well, he told his manager, hey, go grab this guy a Coke. It was $1. So it talked about, you know, being willing to do things like that. And you're not going to be willing if you've not taken the time to invest in yourself. You're going to just be hanging on. So that was one of the key things that we discussed.
What does investing in yourself look like? Because I've heard that term before. You know, you need to invest in yourself. But what are the practical steps?
So the practical steps are just going to, like, in my view, are going to be to read or to listen, take time to evaluate what's going on and how can you better. So sometimes, you know, that looks like trips with your staff, or sometimes that's just finding a book and reading a book and learning based on that.
Cool. Learning and discussing. Absolutely. So, but doing something, I don't think it has to be, the reason I asked the question is I don't think it has to be life altering. We're not going back to school to get an MBA, right? You just need to look past the little box that we put ourselves in. Because in that story, and I love the story, it's easy to say, no, I'm sorry, we have Pepsi. And as a Coke guy, I hate that answer.
Right. Because, you know, as simple as that is, it may be that you have a post-op that comes in and your doctor's on vacation. So what are you going to do because they're having trouble? So we want our staff to think of something to do instead of saying, I'm sorry, the doctor's not here. Well, we're set up to do a virtual exam. So let's see if we can Zoom our doctor. You know, think about not only, of course, there's all of these things that we can purchase, and do, but what do you have in the practice that you can use, that you are just looking at every single day that you've not taken the time to realize what can you do? And I feel like when you invest in yourself and you start thinking that way, you use that in your practice.
Oh, I love that. Being creative, being inventive, and just figuring out how to use the tools on hand. So cool. So investing in yourself, what was the one of the next things that you guys learned?
So asking the incorrect questions versus the correct questions. As leaders, it is so easy to ask those incorrect questions because we're tired and we're spinning our wheels and we just want to say, why did you not do your job? Well, that's not the correct question. And it's easy to get stuck in that habit.
Yep. So what are some examples of correct questions?
So instead of asking someone, why can you not just do your job? Like saying, hey, what kind of training do you think that we could do to help you in this area? Or I see that you're struggling. How can I help you? It's using that how and not what did you do? It's how can I help you?
Yep. I love that. And after the first time reading this book, I in our office and even now with my kids and people I work with, I try to remember it, and I see a much more positive response when I say, hey, look, here's the problem that I'm having, that I'm seeing, right? So it's my problem, not theirs. I try to own the problem and then ask for help. And it could even be somebody coming in late. Look, I'm having a problem. I'm not having a full team here on time, right? And I went back and looked, and I've noticed that you're coming in late 80% of the time, sometimes by 2 minutes, sometimes by half an hour. You know, help me understand the challenge. Help me understand how I can better help you and help me solve this problem. Has given me more positive responses than what I really wanted to say was, come on, what's your problem? Get here.
Right. That's a daily battle.
A daily battle. So, do you think that can apply to patients too? So asking the right questions with patients as well?
Absolutely. Because, you know, when I watch the doctors interact with the patients, sometimes they just don't want to do what the doctor says. So if the doctor kind of helps them make it their idea, they're on board. and it can help them better understand. Because we know, we come in here every day and we know what's going on. We know that you need to properly take care of your eyes, your contacts, your glasses, but patients don't live that. They have no idea. So if we help them, it ultimately helps us.
I like that. That's an interesting comment that we know, they don't. And I think sometimes we forget, though, that they have a vote in how this all goes down. In fact, their vote probably is stronger than our vote. And so helping them make it their idea.
Yeah, because I think kind of where those questions come in is we forget that our patients have a vote because our vote's the only one that matters at the time. And we forget about that because it should be, we think, just as easy as do what we told you to do.
I wish it was. So
yeah.
Very cool. What else?
So beating the riff, that was my favorite chapter, because, you know, if you've played sports, that's why I love this book, is big sports fan, love to play, love to coach. And beating the ref is difficult. So the ref may be your doctor. It may be me for my staff. It may be our patients. You got to beat the ref. You have to beat your opponent, which we get, and you got to beat yourself. Where your opponent, that's so easy. Beating yourself, you're learning and growing. But the ref, you know how we all can feel about refs sometimes, like they're not right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, removing yourself from that view. Even when I coach, I have a meeting with my parents, and I kind of use this same thing with the staff here is, hey, we have to remember the ref has a different view. We're sitting in the stands and the ref is on the floor. They can't see everything that we can see. So same thing with the patients, with the doctors, with practice managers. We are at an elevated view from our patients and from what's going on. We're not, boots on the ground sometimes. We're sitting at a desk trying to make those decisions. And we have to remember that everyone has a different view and everyone may see the same kind of thing that's going on, but view it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And I think they all have a different perspective, and not only perspective, but they all have, dare I say, different priorities, right? The coach mm-hmm. is looking for their team to win. Parents often are looking for their child to excel. Mm-hmm. And the referee is making sure that the game is being played appropriately. So all different priorities, and we hope they overlap. But yeah, in the practice, there's lots of different referees based on different situations. What strategies did they talk about on how to beat the ref?
So you can't argue with them. That's the thing. Is you can certainly try, but you have to just go with it. It is what it is. It's their call. So when they make that call, you have to change you. You have to change your perspective, how you're looking at it, and what you're going to do about it.
Mm-hmm. So, which is not always as easy to do as we'd like it to be.
No,
I get that. It's interesting from a practice owner's standpoint. I love input, but at some point we have to make a decision, and I'll get behind it. And
right.
And one of the secrets that I try to tell my staff is that, the weight of that decision making is on me, which means if
mm-hmm.
it works, it's on me. And if it fails, it's on me. And so right. I have to take that weight. But what I really want is their input. Mm-hmm. But the input that I want is not the complaining input. It's the right. outside that box thinking. I live for the day when I have staff that says, patient asks for a Coke, all we have is Pepsi, I'll be right back. Right? I'm going to go buy that Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to develop those team members that can give us that input and maybe even start controlling the ref, right? Or influencing the ref.
Yes. And we have used this because that is something difficult. Staff do look to me to make decisions, but ultimately Dr. Shamlin, as the owner and as the doctor, she has to make those decisions. And sometimes we don't understand why. And we may give her input and her decision is based something different. She's also been in practice for 35 years. So a lot of times we find ourselves saying, oh yeah, you're right. And I hate saying that, but I have to say it like 5 times a week. Okay, you're right again. But to get that kind of thinking from our staff has been difficult until as a staff, we actually got the question behind the question and the workbook to go with it. And it's really been eye-opening for our staff. We've seen a huge shift and turn in just the behavior in our staff.
So what do you, I mean, other than going through the book and the workbook, and I know there's a lot there, but if you were going to summarize what was the driver behind the change you've seen in your staff and in your team, what do you think has made the most impact, or why you've seen that shift?
I think it's because everyone's on the same page. So the first couple of times when we did this in a staff meeting, there was maybe one or two that kind of said something. Mm-hmm. And you could see some kind of disagreeing between the staff, but then all of a sudden you start to see the wheels turning and everybody it started to click. And then everyone started with input and they saw it was okay to have different opinions. And then everyone just talked about it. So we've hit some pretty deep subjects, of course, financials and no, we can't always get new lines of frames and we can't always have the nicest cases. But it's been open conversation and I think it kind of relaxed everyone to see that it's a group effort and that it's okay if Dr. Shamlin makes a decision we don't like, there's a reason for it. And in the end, she ends up being right, unfortunately.
Well, I need to learn from her then because I'm not always right. But I always have a reason why we made the decision, and I hope it's the right one.
Yeah.
It's funny. It sounds like communication, and every problem we have in the office, I can always track back to a communication challenge. So mm-hmm. It's getting everybody on the same page and having that communication is huge. Very cool.
Yes.
So beating the ref. What's next?
So succeeding within the box, we kind of hit on that a little bit. Just what do you have that you can use? So when there's new things that always come out, so the life meter's coming out with MacuHealth, but the PharmaNex hand scan we have, those are huge dollar amount difference, but we're not even implementing what we have. So taking that, for example, just finding ways to implement it before taking something to our doctors or to support staff, having the data to set it up. So just working inside the box. But then the next big point was I can only change me. We spend a lot of time trying to change each other, staff trying to change each other. If we got two techs and one's pulling more weight than the other, and only changing me has been a big focus.
That's tough. Let's pause there for a minute, because as a manager and as a leader, you can only change you, but you're also responsible for, I don't want to say changing others, but you're responsible for helping them have a higher output, have a higher production, or more quality output or production. So how do you as a leader help, how do you change others when you can't force that change?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a big difference in me today and me 3 years ago. Whenever I landed this role, 3 years ago, I was changing everybody, and it was not pretty. But just my response to it and trying to figure out what works for everyone, because I had an outline and we're going to do this, and I'm going to do this every single person. And then just taking the time to learn each person and how they learn and how they speak, what's their love language, what's their motivators. So just, it's individual. Like, everyone is different. Everyone learns differently. And I would say reading a lot of books.
I was just going to ask you what was the change between here and there, and it's amazing what books can bring to us.
Uh-oh.
So a lot of books. I love books. And are you a reading person, or are you like a listening? Do you like audiobooks? Do you like paper
I do
books?
Not like audio. I like paper books. I feel like I can read it faster. I can highlight and make notes.
Yeah, very cool. I'm always curious who likes what and why people like it. So
yeah. So next on the list is hiring the right candidates. And I know that's like huge for everyone across the nation. Yes. People can interview so well. They can just hit it out of the park. And then they come in and maybe they prop their feet up and play their Nintendo Switch on their first day, or get
Sounds
in
like
and maybe
real life story.
Yeah. They might even get in and their first 2 weeks are great, and then something switches. that was something huge. And just looking at some of the questions throughout this book, something that you can ask. So one thing that we kind of hit on here in the practice, and of course we've changed our interviewing process many times thinking that could be it. Thinking it could be, I blamed myself, thinking, man, my skills must be horrible. So then we brought in Dr. Grissom to let him help us too. But there are questions that you can certainly ask, put them in situations and see what they give you. Do they give you all of that positive talk, or do they give you negative? So what did you like about your last job? If they give you 3 positive things, then you're headed the right direction. But if they give you 3 negative things and things that they just did not like about their job, then you know what you're kind of getting into.
Yeah, I like that.
But you have to watch for that victim thinking that's in the question behind the question. And you can pick up on that in a lot of the questions that you ask in your interviews.
Mm-hmm. And an underlying theme that, and I don't recall if they called it out specifically in the book or not, but I remember one of the underlying themes in the book was really that empowerment, right? How do you use the tools that you have? How do you not be a victim to the referee, but how do you understand the rules of the game and the dynamics at play so that you have a positive outcome for yourself and then others? Did you pick up on that when you guys were doing the book club? Just that self-empowering?
Yes.
Yeah. So, cool. Awesome. And what else?
So one thing that's big, we do it here with our staff too, and we discussed it a lot in the book club, was believe or leave. A lot of times in practices, we hold on to the wrong ones for too long. There's many reasons that we do that. I mean,
yes.
they're great in their 90 days. And then after that 90 days, something happens. And no matter where we are, Tennessee is a right to work state, but even still, you think of all those legal things. So you think, I can't get rid of this person. Or maybe they'll be better. Maybe I can change them. So we forget the whole first half of the book and we're like, maybe I can change them. And we hold on to them for far too long. Believe or leave is just something that we've kind of taken and just held on to tightly. If they're not in it, and love it, because optometry to me is something that you love. You either love it or you don't. It's not a job that you're just here to get your paycheck. So if that is it, then it's not the right fit for our team. We're looking for someone who loves it just as much as everyone else on the team does.
Absolutely. And I think that's empowering to them too, because nobody wants to be in a spot that they don't love either. And sometimes sometimes baby birds fly out of the nest on their own. Sometimes mama bird has to give them a little bit of a nudge to go find where they need to be.
Yeah. And sometimes people are way better off when they leave versus when they stick around.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen some go to be nurses, and do different things, go back to school, or maybe just find somewhere that they're just happy. It's better for the whole team, and you can kind of feel that weight lift the moment that they walk out the door.
For everybody, yep.
Mm-hmm.
For them and us. So
yeah,
cool. These are great. What else do you got for us?
So my last point is the executive staff. Just the role models that we set. So when we walk in the door, if we've had a crappy morning and we bring that in the mornings, then that's going to set the tone for the rest of the staff. We have to, we can only control us. We have to come in and leave that at the door, because whatever we're doing, maybe not saying it's not acceptable, but we're not addressing it, then that means we're letting it happen. So we have to be straightforward, communicate, but always have that positive mindset when we walk in the door, no matter what happens, whether it is, letting someone go or it's a difficult patient. We have to set the tone for our entire staff. And it all comes back to asking ourselves those right or correct questions, and figuring out how to succeed within the box, how to beat the ref, everything. But we have to display that every single day.
Yep. That's not always easy to do. Sometimes it's full character mode to put on a persona, but I agree with you. I think it starts at the head, starts at the top.
Yes, it does. And saying that, you doctors have to deal with us. So I don't know how you all do it because it's difficult. I couldn't imagine being in that position to where the doctor is seeing the patient, owning the practice. You just have to have that great support team underneath you. But to have it all together because, it's like probably herding a bunch of cats every day with all of us running around.
And we are one of the cats that we have to herd ourselves. It's, because we want to go in 20 different, at least I want to go in 20 different directions at once. So it's one of the best things that helped me. It's my personality. When I get to work, I open the door and it's time to work. I get in to work and work and work. And I asked my staff, do we have any challenges in the office? I think things are great. And they all laughed and said, you don't come and say hi to anybody. You just come in and start working. We need you to say hi. We need you to come in. And so I now have a little plaque when I first walk in, and it just says, "Go say hi." But having the reminders, and I think there's nothing wrong about that. I think it's having the reminders that when we're having a bad day, or if I'm not fulfilling my role of being that leader and being the positive, I've asked them to call me out. Pull me aside and just in a funny way and in whatever way they need. Hey, I need rainbows and sunshine, and I'm getting thunderstorms out of you right now. Which I may not like at that moment, but it's the reminder that I got to snap out, because I'm going to expect the same from them, and I'll tell them, hey, your demeanor looks off. Go for a quick walk, come back with a smile. So I expect that back, and I think we can each help keep each other in check. I like that.
Yes, I think that's the great thing about. I've worked in other medical clinics, but in optometry, I feel like doctors and staff have that connection that they can do that, whether it's offering a piece of chocolate because an all-woman practice. We have one male, Dr. Grissom. Our thing is handing people some chocolate sometime. It's like, hey.
chocolate fixes a lot. Coffee does as well. So I've got a question for you, because this is all fantastic, and I've always loved the idea of a book club. But how do you, if an office or somebody's listening to this and says, hey, I want to do the book club, how do you do a book club? What are just the steps of coming together, reading the book together, setting the discussions? How do you do it?
So I'm sure there are many ways to do it. But the best way that I found is you have a leader, find someone, designate a leader, someone who probably loves it more than anyone, and just assign some chapters. Hey, we're going to do this, if they're wanting to break it down, or if you want to read the whole book. If you have a staff that's like really into it and ready and they can read the whole book and digest that much at one time, read the whole book, then someone just have some points that you hit on and discuss. And then, some books have workbooks, and those are always great. Keep you thinking and looking deeper into it. But you have to set aside that time and decide when you're going to do it, and just stay on strict schedule. Get it done. Have someone just to head off the questions, let the group talk. Just one question will turn into 20, and you'll find things that weren't even in the book that can help you grow.
Very cool. And that's the biggest power that I've seen in reading books. And actually, I like audiobooks because I listen while I'm running, and my mind just starts to drift. I may not remember exactly what I heard, but I've got a whole bunch of cool ideas when I come back. So somewhere in there, I was inspired to problem solve or think of something. But great, this sounds fantastic, and it sounds like it's something that an office could easily do. Meet once a month during their office meeting and dedicate one of those meetings to book club, even if it's just 30 minutes of that meeting.
Yes,
everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So are you going to do another book club?
Yes. So after we did this book club, the common thing was staffing. So my next book was my end book with Dr. Mike Rothschild's book club, and it's The Energy Bus.
Oh, very cool. I
Just
haven't read that
on
one yet. I'll have to check it out.
It's an easy read, easy listen. You could probably listen to it in a couple of runs. I'm a runner too, and that's got me thinking I might want to start listening while I run. But it's super easy. It talks about all the different types of employees that you might have in your office and how to either get them on the bus, or kind of the same thing, believe or leave. Can't have the energy vampire. So I think a lot of people were super excited to do the energy bus, maybe even more so than the question behind the question.
Cool. Well, we'll have to have you back on after the energy bus to give us another breakdown and summary, because this has been fun.
Awesome.